All right, good evening. Welcome to the Thursday evening EMA Talk Points. As of yesterday, Education Week started. Education Week stated, school closures due to coronavirus have impacted at least 124,000 U.S. public and private schools and affected at least 55.1 million students. On April 17th, Governor Reynolds and the Iowa Department of Education announced that all 327 public school districts and 179 non-public schools were to be closed for the remainder of the school year, and districts would proceed with a variety of continuous at-home learning programs to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. The coronavirus closure is very challenging. Today's students do have an advantage over previous generations, and that is technology. Today, teachers can give direct instruction, collect assignments, use email, websites, cloud storage, and video conferencing software. But even with the variety of technological options, many experts remain worried about the prolonged school closures associated with coronavirus having a major effect on children's learning and the impact on families who may already be struggling with loss of employment, economic hardship, and stress associated with the spread of illness. And schools are facing unique teaching challenges to make sure that they are reaching their kids. According to the Mayo Clinic and the United States Centers for Disease Control, the COVID-19 pandemic and resulting economic downturn had negatively affected many people's mental health and created new barriers for people already suffering from mental illness and substance use disorders. As the pandemic wears on, it is likely the mental health burden will increase as measures taken to slow the spread of the virus, such as social distancing, business and school closures, and stay-at-home recommendations, lead to greater isolation and potential financial distress for families. Though the measures are necessary to prevent exposure, illness, and loss of life due to COVID-19, they may thrust many people into situations that are linked to poor mental health outcomes, such as isolation and job loss. As people are falling ill and are uncertain of the repercussions of the pandemic, additional feelings of fear and anxiety may add greater stress to the situation. Walpole County Emergency Management and Walpole County Public Health are pleased to present the following panelists for tonight's Thursday Talking Points. Representing Walpole County School Districts, behind me is Steve Noble, the principal at the High School of Eddyville-Blakesburg, Fremont. Michelle Edwards, the Cardinal Middle School and High School Counselor. Vern Reed, the At-Risk Coordinator for the Ottumwa School District. And representing the Southern Iowa Mental Health Center, Christine Sharp, the director. So thank you to you all for joining us tonight, and we'll start with Steve.
He introduced me as Steve Noble, principal, Eddyville-Blakesburg Fremont Junior Senior High School, and I'll walk through some of the questions that you guys had for us and just give a little response on how our district has responded to we're going to call it a crisis. They got dropped on us. We were out of schools starting on March 16th. And at that point in time, it was a 4-week closure from schools. And so we had to sit back and figure out what we were going to do. Not only was it a 4-week closure from schools, but just given the degree of, the crisis, we all kind of had in the back of our minds that this may be for longer than 4 weeks. So, what are we going to do? We know that it's 4 weeks, but it could be much longer than that. At our school system, the first thing that we did is send out communication to our families, just letting them know simply of the school closure and letting them know that there's many different capacities that we wish to continue to serve our kids. At the high school, very proud of my staff, we took 3 days and we had a continual learning platform up and running in 3 days. So March 16th was our first day. We kind of sat there as an administrative team and figured out, okay, what are we going to do? When it came to the 17th, it was a meeting with my staff. We had a 2-hour online virtual staff meeting, rolling out our mission and vision at that time, what it was going to look like for us to continue to educate kids, and gave them a day to get organized, which would have been that Wednesday, and we rolled right out with it on Thursday. So on March 19th, we had a continual learning platform in place, and I was very proud that our district was able to do that. Not only at the junior senior high school, but our elementaries took immediate action as well. Learning packets were sent out to the students and families at that time. We have organized a food distribution program for our families immediately because we knew that there was more needs than just the academic side. But you touched on it a little bit, in your opening, that there's some serious concerns with students being out of school. We know that when we're talking about just summer break, summer break's 3 months. And what kind of learning is lost just in a 3-month period? Well, there's a lot of data that shows that there's significant learning loss. Well, what happens if that 3 months now becomes 5 months? And so we had to have a very meaningful platform for us to deliver education to kids. And as you mentioned as well, schools had a little bit of an advantage in this day and age. Technology has been with us for a long time. We've continued to groom technology and to utilize technology to educate kids. At the high school, we were 1-to-1, so everybody had a laptop. Our infrastructure was kind of in place. So we felt like we had a really good chance to pull this off. So it was just a matter of organizing our staff and deciding where we were going and executing, and then understanding that nothing's going to be perfect. We knew right off the bat that we were building this plane in the air, and that we had to do something. We had a mission and vision that told us that we're going to continue to educate kids no matter what the circumstances are. We're going to do something. It's not going to be perfect, but we're going to work towards perfection as we go on.
Thank you, Steve. How did that look like at Cardinal?
Yeah, thanks. We have just hit the ground running at Cardinal. Luckily, spring break was the first week of the closure, so we had some time to plan and prepare some things. We have 1-to-1 as well, and we had a pickup day for students to pick up laptops. They don't take those home, but we were able to have them take those home if they need to. We have a Wi-Fi on the buses, so the buses are going to be providing Wi-Fi within the towns so students can have access to Wi-Fi if they don't have those as well. Teachers are creating classrooms on Google Classroom and Facebook as well, just so they could push out lessons to families. So teachers are supplying those about 3 times a week. And we have a lot of teachers that are doing live Zooms with the kids. The kids have really enjoyed seeing their classmates on the Zoom. So we've seen a lot of participation that way. As well as far as the accommodating of disabilities, that's been an evolving process through the Department of Ed. We're sending files to families. We're using different lessons and manipulatives, graphic organizers, stuff like that to help families accommodate those students that have higher needs. We have a lot of special education teachers that are Zooming with the kids individually, as well as joining into those Google Classrooms. And then we're offering meals a couple times each week. We have a pickup at Cardinal as well as all 3 towns, Batavia, Eldon, and Agency, twice a week, and they're getting breakfast and lunch in those meals. And then for mental health, we have a team of 5 staff members. There's 2 therapists, 2 counselors, and an at-risk coordinator. We meet weekly and try to talk about getting more kids involved, reaching out to parents that need that extra support. We've made some videos to send out to parents and staff to help them with coping skills, dealing with stress and anxiety, just putting faces out there, trying to make connections with people so they can reach out when they do need supports. We have some of the therapists and some of the counselors are meeting virtually with students, just one-on-one sessions. We have a couple small groups that are happening as well. We're not meeting as many as we'd like to meet online. It's kind of a harder thing to get with the online world, but we are continuing to call them and send emails, trying to reach out to parents so they know we're out there and there to support them. So it's been impressive to see the teachers just hit the ground running with this and mold their teaching and all that to help accommodate the kids and just getting through it all together.
Well, thank you, Michelle. Who would have thought we'd ever have Wi-Fi on school buses? Huh?
Right.
That's pretty neat. Vern, what's going on in Ottumwa?
Well, it's like everybody else. It's hard to sum up what's going on in Ottumwa because we're all kind of in the same boat, but it looks differently based on our student makeup, our situation, where we were with our learning as it relates to being able to work online, et cetera. So what I did is I wrote down the questions because I don't want to forget something as we're sharing what's going on. And the first question you mentioned was directly what we're doing with our students. And right now, pre-K through 12, we're offering continuous enrichment opportunities through our website, through our teachers that post each and every week so that students can continue to learn. Steve mentioned the concern. I mean, it's learning, it's how we help with other issues continually, but losing this time for learning is such a big hit for so many students. So being able to offer online lessons by our counselors, offering weekly activities, PK through 8. At the high school level, we're working on continuing with our concurrent enrollment process through Indian Hills. Our counselors are all available K through 12 for contact at any given time. The easiest way is through email with the school closure. Our high school teachers utilize Schoology, which is a process our students are familiar with and parents can get into to see what we can be learning as we're trying to enrich the processes we've already started. And really importantly, we're also offering at the high school through Schoology the opportunity to make up work and redo work from third quarter, knowing that we've lost fourth quarter of this year. And so we're hoping a great many students will take advantage of that. From my point of view as a at-risk guy in this process, I'm proud of our focus on some of our seniors who are behind in credits. We rolled out a week ago an online recovery program with a team of administrators, teachers, counselors, associates, contacting students like everybody is to the best of our ability, with the goal being, as hard as a time as this is also an opportunity for many students. And if we can connect to you, we can use this to improve where you were and make you end up in a really good place by the time this is over. We also rolled out our online credit recovery program for our underclassmen just this week who were working on making up credits for various reasons. The next question you asked was, how do we support children with learning or physical disabilities or in special education? Like everybody, we're having to conduct IEPs in a whole new way through Zoom and contacting parents, and our staff's working with that. I also love that our teachers are modifying work for students with IEPs, as well as our EL teachers contacting parents to see if we can help with language barriers and mitigate circumstances that language could get in the way of. A big focus as we address that question is equity. In the Ottumwa area, we have a percentage of young people who right now may not have access to the internet. So as wonderful as all the technology is for us, if we can't be equitable, if we can't get that to our kids, we're failing them. So we're attacking that in a couple of ways. We discovered through calls with MediaCom that right now they're offering a package where at no cost you can have internet installed. All of the equipment is free, and the first 2 months is free to students who need it, and then the cost is only $9.95 a month after that. So we're using associates as advocates to help connect our students and families to that MediaCom deal so we can give as many students as possible access to the internet. We've partnered with the YMCA Bridgeview Center to help identify areas. I think we have 10 or 11 areas where we drop food every single day of the week. It includes 3 meals, and we blanketed every part of our media pages to get that out. Let's not suffer if we don't have to. We hear all the time, we're all in this together. Let's truly be that. We've got a lot of staff who are participating and helping with that also. I think the toughest question that you all sent out was, how do we reach kids who need extra help, especially as it relates to kids we know with mental health situations, right? And new stresses that will arise because of this closure. And we don't have any great answers like the rest of us, but we know this. We're trying to do everything we can to get in contact with our kids and families. And our motto is, we'll try now, we'll try again tomorrow. If we have to, you may find a school vehicle sitting outside the street honking because we haven't been able to get a hold of you. And in one of the DE sessions, the Department of Health Services, I think, or Human Services was part of it. And their point was, teachers who've already established relationships with so many of our children, if we can just reach out to them continually, we can get a better handle for some of the things, both emotionally and physically, they're suffering through. So we're trying to do everything we can to make that contact happen. This is such an unusual situation, and I believe, Steve, you called it a crisis, as it certainly is. And I'm new to Ottumwa this year, but like the rest of our school, we believe in our community, and there's no more important piece of our community than our kids. So I'm proud of our staff and our admin and everybody who's pulling together to try to do everything we can.
Thank you, Vern. And I'm proud to also be a member of the community, and I'm proud of all three of our districts in the county. As you've heard, they've all been ahead of the curve, really. They've embraced technology. They had things in place already. So when a challenge of this magnitude comes to light, they were ready to switch gears and create some new opportunities and innovative ways to address the issue. And so that is something you all should be proud of, I feel. And another thing that the community has done ahead of the curve was to create a wonderful resource that we all lean on, and that's the Southern Iowa Mental Health Center. And I'll let you talk about that.
Great. Thanks, Tim. So my name is Christina. I'm with Southern Iowa Mental Health Center. We are one of several treatment facilities here in town. Wapello County is actually blessed with a lot of really great healthcare options, including mental health. There's about 5 different agencies in town that actually offer mental health treatment. A lot of people don't know that, but I feel like that's an area that our county is really rich in. So I always try to start off any kind of setting like this saying, if for some reason you don't want us, pick somebody, reach out to somebody, because there are a lot of options in town. So if you've had a bad experience with one, shop around, keep going until you find somebody that really fits for you. And if it's not Southern Iowa Mental Health Center, find somebody, because like I said, there's just a lot of really great options. So I feel like the topic of mental health is kind of in a unique setting. Initially, when all of the discussion and the initial fear of Corona first came out, it took a very physical health focus, and rightly so. Initially we were so focused on hospitals and emergency rooms and nurses, and the focus of the community and citizens really was about, how do I protect myself from a physical disease? We talked a lot about viruses, we talked about germs, we talked about cleaning surfaces, we talked about respiratory issues, we talked about trouble breathing, all of these physical things. And now, as we've kind of been in this Corona cycle, or whatever you want to call it, for a lot longer than I thought initially this was going to last, I think mental health issues are kind of an unintended consequence of what we first started with, a very physical health focus. And so I feel like it's just a very unique opportunity, really, to have the discussion about mental health and how important it is to be in touch with where you're at mentally, at the same time as you're working on keeping your physical body healthy. I also think during this time of Corona, people that normally have not had any kind of mental health issues might, for the first time in their life, find themselves really needing to reach out professionally, because there are so many new stressors that most of us have not had to deal with before. I can't think of a time in my lifetime, honestly, where I have seriously considered like the health of my family to this degree, where I've thought about job security, I've thought about schooling for my kids, I've thought about just the general safety and wellness, especially for this long of a time. We're used to like crises like tornadoes, or the crises that are so short. This is so long. And so I feel like for some people who have never reached out to a mental health professional, this really could be the event that kind of pushes them in that direction, because I feel like this is so different. And it's just a new kind of stress that we're not used to. So again, there's just a lot of other concerns that we've never dealt with before. This idea of social distancing, perhaps people facing unemployment and they've never had that concern before. Extra time on their hands for some people, especially if you're have had mental illness concerns before. This idea of idle time actually isn't very good for some mental health conditions. Some people with mental illness do better when they're busy. And then, of course, just this overall fear of the disease itself. We still believe that it's out in circulation in some regards. So that fear of catching the disease is still out there. And so, again, just a lot of new stressors. So when we think about mental illness, I think a great place to start. So if you're a person who this isn't really a thing you've been concerned about in the past, a piece of advice that we always tell people is think about what is your function, what's your ability to function in your current state of living, whatever that is? And is your function level changed? Has it decreased in any way? And that usually is a really good way for people to kind of think about this abstract idea of mental wellness or even mental illness. So I'll use an example if I have time. I didn't even ask you how much time I have because I could talk a long time. Okay. So I'll use this example of weather. I hate snow. So last Friday, I was in a bad mood because it was not the right time for snow, and I just hate snow. So if I wake up in the morning and I look out my window and it's cold, it's cloudy, it's gray, and it's snowing, I am instantly in a bad mood. And what I want to do is kind of like pull the covers back over my head, and I don't really want to get up and shower. I don't really want to pay attention to my family. I don't really want to go to work. I find myself in this mood or in this place where my function level goes down because of an outside event, right? Now, let's say I'm a person who, no matter what the weather is, I'm a person who I don't want to get out of bed. Every time I wake up, I want to pull the covers back over my head. I'm letting family responsibilities go. I'm not in contact with my boys. I'm ignoring my husband. I'm not going to work. I'm having absentee issues. And the weather piece that I kind of half jokingly about isn't a factor for me, but my overall function has decreased regardless of these outside factors. That's a good indication of somebody that might want to seek out mental health help. So what we tell people is your function decreasing despite other things in your life? So when other things get better or other things get worse, do you find yourself, is your function level going down? Are you having trouble taking care of your family? Are you having trouble taking care of yourself? Are you having trouble doing the things that are normally expected of you? What's your daily function activities? What are the things that you are expected to do on a normal basis? And are those things decreasing even despite other external factors that are happening? So we always start with that question. When somebody says, how do I know if I need to seek mental health treatment? Or how do I know a normal bad mood because it has snowed is different than I might be getting depressed? And so I always tell people, what's your function? What's your function level? And have you noticed your function going down? So if you've noticed your function being decreasing, that might be a good time for you to reach out and talk to a mental health professional. And again, with Corona happening, I think it's likely that people who have never thought about mental health treatment before could find themselves in a situation where they're way more anxious than they ever have been before. I mean, again, these are very new fears that I've not faced in my lifetime. I can't remember the last time I sheltered in place for 30 days because of Corona. Like, it's just not happened before. So I think people need to be aware that if they, say to themselves, mental health is not my issue, I've never had trouble before, this is new. Like, there's just a lot of new stuff that's happening, especially for children. If we think like my child functions fairly well during summer break, my child enjoys Christmas break, I think they'll be fine during this time of no school. Well, they've never not been in the classroom for 6 months before. I mean, this is new for them. So just be attuned to function. Is your functioning decreasing? Is your child's functioning decreasing? And even if you're, even if you're somebody who this isn't normally a thing that you're concerned about, a lot of these stressors are new for us. And so it's a good time to really be thinking about your mental wellness and what's your function level? How are you dealing with these new stressors that are happening? So then one of your questions were, if you notice yourself having a decrease in function, your mood is getting worse and worse, you're not able to do the things that are expected of you, we would encourage you to reach out for some kind of resources. Now, normally, under normal circumstances, we highly encourage our patients to go to work and socialize. And unfortunately, in a time of Corona, those are two things that might not be available for everyone, which again, I worry that some of our unintended consequences of what we've tried to do to protect ourselves are in some ways going to end up harming or doing just not being as helpful as we initially thought that they would be the longer things go. So assuming that socializing or work might not be available to you, another resource that we would offer is Michelle mentioned videos. We are a generation that's on our phone all the time. There's a lot of really good TED Talks that are very positive. On our Southern Iowa Mental Health Center Facebook page, we've put on there a couple of videos of our therapists talking about mindfulness techniques, about how you can encourage yourself, get to a place of grounding, get to a place of better wellness when some of these other options for you might not be available. We always encourage people, if you've had a period of time in your life before where you've not done well mentally or with your mental illness, we always ask people, what's worked for you before? Have you found a technique that's worked for you in the past? And if that's still available for you, then we would encourage you to go back to that. Now that the weather's getting better, we certainly encourage people to go outside, get out, get moving as much as possible. And again, unfortunately, one of the things we always recommend is go to work. So if you're able to leave your house and go to your office even for one day out of the week, or depending on how your employer has that set up, we highly encourage people to do that. People feel better and their functioning improves when they feel like they're contributing in some way. And then lastly, not to necessarily do a commercial for us, but Southern Iowa Mental Health Center does have a crisis line that's available 24 hours a day. So we've talked with people in the past month who say, nights are bad for me. I'm having trouble sleeping. Once the house is quiet and my kids are asleep, my mind just races. We've talked with people who they might get off in the middle of the night. They are still working and they're just having trouble turning everything off. We're just bombarded with bad news lately. So just keep that in mind. If you need somebody to talk to in the middle of the night, if you need to talk to somebody in the middle of the day, it's available at no charge. It's completely confidential. The phone is answered 24 hours a day. So just keep that in mind as a crisis line, as an option for people to just kind of reach out and seek some help if you need to do that.
Thank you, Christina. And thank you to all of our participants tonight. I think, as you can see, we have some great resources in the community. And as Steve mentioned, our school districts do much more than just educate. They support our families in many ways. And you can reach out to your school district, the Southern Iowa Mental Health Center, at any time for support, and they will guide you in the right direction. I feel really good about how our schools have really stepped up to the plate and worked hard to develop continuous learning solutions and supporting their students and their families in a very short period of time. And our mental health providers continue to do an excellent job offering community mental health strategy for all of our students and residents. Please remember to continue to stay home when possible. And if you need to go out, wear a mask, practice social distancing, that's 6 feet. Don't take your family out if you don't have to. Wash your hands frequently, sanitize surfaces. We're all going to become germaphobes and really good at cleaning things. So spring cleaning shouldn't be an issue. And if you're sick, call your healthcare provider. Utilize any of the resources we've posted on our Facebook page, Emergency Management Agency, or our website, wapaloready.org. All of the resources are posted there. We cross-post information from the school districts and from Southern Iowa Mental Health. And thank you for joining us tonight, and wash your hands.